Auschwitz. Even saying that name aloud can conjure up feelings of dread, agony and torment. Just say the word and your mind can fill in the blanks. This is the exact raw power of the imagination tapped into by Jonathan Glazer. In this edition of Nightmare Fuel, it's time to talk about The Zone of Interest, which recently picked up Oscars for Best International Feature and, more importantly in the case of this video, Best Sound. There will be spoilers ahead as I discuss key moments and devices used in the film to convey its nightmare fuel, so you have been warned. What makes The Zone of Interest such a powerful watch is that it utilises what you don't see rather than what you do. The whole setup of the film is remarkably simple, yet its eloquence directly stems from that one simple idea. Despite being a film about Auschwitz, it isn't. It's about what goes on outside Auschwitz. We bear witness to the quaint, idyllic life of a family making their home, going about their days carefree and in constant harmony. Meanwhile, the ears of the audience pick up something very different. The sounds of hell emanating from right over the other side of the wall. It's honestly no wonder why The Zone of Interest got the Best Sound Oscar, because the film's entire purpose is to use sound to paint pictures in the viewer's mind. If you choose to listen to it, you're in for a bone-chilling experience, or if you choose to ignore it like the family does, you can go about the film in blissful ignorance. And that's exactly the case in point right here, sweeping the chaos of warfare under the carpet. So the family home here belongs to Rudolf Höss, the commandant of Auschwitz. It's his job to manage the day-to-day business of the camp, which we never even explicitly see. We only spend a minutely brief time in the camp, but never enough to fully see what makes people scream. We never get a good look at any of the prisoners, never see a single killing, never see events from their point of view. All we have is what we see outside, and our imaginations do the rest when the sound transmits from within. As far as nightmare fuel goes, this is seriously effective, because it exploits your own knowledge of what actually happened. When you hear screams, cries and gunshots, chances are you know where those sounds came from and what they mean. Many adults on the planet have at least a basic awareness of what happened at Auschwitz. It's one of the most famous tragedies in human history. So the more prior context you bring into the zone of interest, the more you can get out of it. The more vivid the paintings in your mind can get. The less you know, the more you have to think to put pieces together. And when you discover what those pieces accumulate to, it can feel like someone has walked over your grave. Or, third option, you've never heard a single thing about Auschwitz, have no idea what it is, and most of the film's connotations get lost on you, but that just again proves the point of the bliss of ignorance. The Zone of Interest has a remarkably rare ability of being a completely unique experience to every single person who sees it, purely depending on how much they know in advance. And no matter what level that is, there's still an impact that can be felt. Now I've covered the general sweeping statement of The Zone of Interest, I'm going to discuss more details of the film, including several scenes which I found to be particularly spine-tingling in the nightmare fuel department. First off, one major strength which carries on throughout is that The Zone of Interest is by no means dramatized. It's not like a big character-driven production with heightened cinematic techniques like a Schindler's List or a Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. Zone remains minimal. It's acted and displayed very much like the real world, the only exception being the otherworldly night vision filters we see in a couple of scenes. Other than that, the film feels ultra real, like we are literally gazing into the past rather than a cinematic recreation of the past, and that makes the shocking images hit so much harder. The subtlety of those images is also in itself a superpower. The women of the family home are provided with a selection of clothes to choose from. A rather ordinary image, like they're being treated by the commandant perhaps, until two and two are put together, that is. These clothes are the clothes of Jewish prisoners. Each and every item of clothing we see here has a story we are never told, and an owner who we never see, but your mind can instinctively predict the probable fate of the people who used to wear them. This is just one of many moments moments in the film where we are shown things with minimal or no explanation with purpose. Another chilling example comes from Hearst playing in the river with his children, which slowly begins to change colour, the water becoming more murky, and a human bone is picked up from the depths. The river was a channel for disposing the incinerated remains of Jewish prisoners. This is literally bones and ash of countless human lives drifting downstream, and that is supremely disturbing. Not just the image, but the aftermath. How Hearst complains about the carelessness of how the remains were disposed of. It comes across like these deaths were an inconvenience because they spoiled a lovely family day out and had an effect on his kids, needing to be scrubbed clean. Again, the perspectives and reactions of the characters we see versus those of the remnants we witness are soul-crushingly bleak. This, however, isn't the only example of the ashes of Auschwitz having an impact on the viewer. We also get scenes where the kids play in the snow in the garden, where we can suppose that it isn't snow per se. On a separate point, the way in which some of the children are affected is deeply unsettling, with one of the boys getting locked in the greenhouse by another, making sounds like a gas chamber, turning suffering into child's play in a mocking fashion. Returning to the use of ashes, they even become part of the gardening process. Every single fragment of ash has an element of fear and death concealed within it. The garden itself offers up more upsetting perceptions of reality. There are complaints about the amount of weeds in the garden needing addressing, and so much focus is placed on keeping the garden perfect. It's even said that the house gets so cold in the winter that they've had to go through the inconvenience of installing central heating. These problems are so trivial and meaningless in comparison to what is happening within earshot. It perfectly encapsulates how one person's biggest worries can be infinitesimal compared to what someone else in the world is feeling. The concern here is weeds. The concern next door is survival. What a difference walking distance can make. However, there is still a vast amount in this film that makes you feel unsettled, sprouting directly from Hearst himself. He comes across as a passive man who, for the majority of the film, is unfazed by his role in the world. There's a meeting about the new crematorium, how it will work, how many people can be processed through it, and he is genuinely intrigued about the mechanical aspects, about how the crematorium will operate. The one thing that doesn't occur to him, however, is that this fascinating machine is designed for murder. The discussions are so casual and, again, trivial. One person correcting that closer to 500 people can be processed at a time, not 400, which comes across like a small admin error, yet it means that 100 more human beings can be killed in one go. So much of this film's nightmare fuel stems simply from the lack of genuine care for what is really going on the other side of that wall. Who is screaming, who the gunshots hit, who the dogs are barking at, who the incinerators are burning. On top of this, we also get the sights and sounds of the Auschwitz trains, transporting even more Jews towards their deaths with stomach-churning regularity, like a conveyor belt. In one of the thermal imagery style sequences, we can see the smoke from the train rising as it moves even more people. We see smoke, but our minds know what the smoke means. The zone of interest is a sensory experience. We are given images accompanied by ethereal sounds to lure us in and warm up our eyes and ears. The introduction to the film is an extended black screen filled with harmonic noises, taking us into birdsong. We also have a similar white screen, much shorter in length, and filled with scary noises of panic and torture. Then we get a red screen, shorter and scarier still. Our sight is removed temporarily, and our ears are sonically bombarded with emotion, almost like lubricating our senses to experience the rest of the film's offerings. And if the experience wasn't somber enough, it only worsens in the climax. Hearst heads to a large meeting with many representatives of other camps. This expands the playing field so much wider. It sinks in that all the horrors we have heard and seen don't just apply to one place. There is an entire network of other camps that we never see, but we know that similar things are happening there, which enlarges the scale scale of nightmare fuel enormously. In a remarkably powerful ending, Hearst attends an elegant fancy party and begins to imagine the most efficient way to gas the people there. He then descends down a flight of stairs, going further into darkness and, quite possibly, madness, while retching, perhaps finally feeling the connotations of his work. Then we are kicked into the present day, seeing the Auschwitz Museum, tended to by caretakers like the workers tending to the garden. Piles of countless possessions, shoes, suitcases, each one having a story and an owner, just like the clothes seen earlier in the film. All of these moments populate your mind's eye with unspeakable events. Everything has a morbid history, and the film never needed to be explicit to achieve that. The zone of interest calculates its nightmare fuel by tapping into you. It gives us only a fraction of reality, but it's enough to trigger a blown mind. Our eyes and ears become the tools to open our minds to a world of anguish. And that is why this film ends up on our Nightmare Fuel Hall of Fame. I'm Connor Waits, thank you for watching this video. Please comment your thoughts on the film below, and once again, cheers for watching.